So, what is new wave science fiction? Honestly, I don't really know. I realized I thought I could define it easily, and then I realized that I couldn't. And to my relief, I just looked at SF Encyclopedia online, which is written by the brilliant critic John Clute, and I was relieved to see that he said it's never really been defined with any precision. We know what new wave is. It's the new wave of French critics and filmmakers, uh, Godard and Truffaut, movies like Breathless and 400 Blows. So that's one thing. It's kind of like it seems to break taboos, and it seems to push. Um, it's an artistic vanguard, okay. And then in the early '80s, the bands like Blondie, Talking Heads were called new wave. England had the British wave of heavy metal with bands like Iron Maiden, Judas Priest. So new wave is just a term for like it's the new kid in town, right? It's it's the it's something you want to be, kind of. It had something with an edgy cachet, and it's something that, in the case of science fiction, instead of the robots, the Studebaker robots you see in Asimov, and the guys trying to count screws in space, that kind of thing, where it just the slide rule people, the slide rule crowd, the nerd crowd. This is supposed to be this brings sex and drugs to the party. That's not an adequate definition because new wave is so much more than that. Like for me, it's so much more. Um, because a lot of these authors really matter to me, each for their own unique reasons, and my concern is that a lot of them are just being consigned to oblivion. Nobody reads them anymore. People like Dish and John Slotnick and um, Harlan Ellis, and to various degrees, these people are still read. But um, I'm worried that a lot of these authors may just fall into oblivion. So I want to keep them. I want to point a way towards them at least. Try to explain kind of what they were about. People don't read anymore. They don't really know how to read. If they do read, it seems to be the kind of phone book fantasy type thing where it's all laid out. And I mean, that is the opposite of what New Wave was. New Wave dealt with strange states of mind, ambiguous meaning, stuff that your average people don't have time for and really never did have time for. But if you want to learn more about it, this book is really a superb example. It's from PM Press. They did another one has the same design and everything. I think it was more about noir or mystery. And it's, I haven't read that one, but I'm interested. Even if I don't care about the genre so much, I'm interested just because this book is very well designed and laid out. I actually know people who did scans for it. My local bookstore here. This gives you a long expository introduction into New Wave, and it covers the different aspects of it. It's impossible to discuss American New Wave science fiction without Harlan Ellison's Dangerous Visions anthology. And it's all Samuel Delany, Thomas Dish, Joe Haldeman. And that's the person who did this cover is a man named Murray Tinkelman. It's one of my favorite cover artists from this era, really from any era. And that little font in the bottom right says "Vastly Entertaining Trip." I believe that's a souvenir font. That's my favorite font too. He also did the cover for the Shockwave Rider by John Brunner, and on the cover. sextrapolation in New Wave science fiction. Broke a lot of sexual taboos. And a lot of it comes from New Worlds magazine, when Michael Moorcock took over, he started publishing the works of J.G. Ballard. And a lot of this stuff has a progenitor in people like, well, in particular, William S. Burroughs. A great beat author. This covers nuclear war, the Vietnam War, feminism with Judith Merrill. What I admire about this book is not just how in-depth it is, but the fact that they bothered to make scans of all these books and give it a deluxe treatment really makes it a feast for the eyes. These old covers had an individualistic thing going on. They you care about them because they don't look like every other book. Each one is unique, sort of. Philip Dick, also very essential. I read Dick when I was younger, and then it's hard for me to go back to him now, just because, I don't know, because sometimes authors just seem to take up a certain time in your life, and going back to them feels like going back to the time in your life, which you don't always feel like doing. So I don't read much Dick anymore, but I will again eventually. Black Power, Flying Saucers and Black Power. A lot of this stuff is socially oriented, but not the way stuff is socially oriented today with, don't want to use the W word, but today's stuff is woke. It feels more like grandstanding or like performative activism. In these days, people, if you're going to be a feminist, like, that meant being thrown out of your house. It involved like having more skin in the game, I think. And there's an edge that just kind of shows up in these writings. And, I plan to use this channel to talk about why these books matter. But in a nutshell, New Wave is radical science fiction, Oh, the way these pages smell. Christopher Priest, he's an important New Wave author. It's Darkening Island, which is subsequently published as Fugue for a Darkening Island. It had a different title. I think he revised it somewhere along the line. Dystopian science fiction. 334, that's a great Dishwork. Hospital Ship, I just ordered that. I'll tell you how it is when I read it. So if you really want to spend some time and get a survey of what these authors are, this book is a place to do it. Dangerous Visions and New Worlds. Thanks.